Christy, I want to talk to you about your experience with the Baltimore Police Department. Take us through what happened to you back in 2012, because I understand there was a party at your home. The police were called a couple times because of a noise. What happened after they arrived?
So the police came and they were pretty aggressive from the start. So they came in and they started arguing with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. They were being very verbally aggressive to him, and it got to the point where they were threatening to tase him. At that point, I started yelling, which I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was basically for everyone to calm down. And then the next thing I knew, I was on the ground.
You were on the ground. You'd been placed on the ground by the police.
Yes. I wouldn't say placed, though. Shoved on the ground very forcefully.
And then what happened?
My shoulder was hurting really badly. They had pounded it into the ground. And then they stood me up for a while, and I was waiting for whatever to happen next to happen. And my dress had ripped while I was on the ground, or I guess when they had grabbed me or when I was on the ground. And I was exposed. My breasts were exposed. And they just had me standing there for anyone to see. So eventually they pushed me into the paddy wagon.
And you were handcuffed when you were put into the back of the wagon?
Yeah, behind my back I was handcuffed.
And did they seatbelt you or strap you in any way?
No, they did not. They just pushed me in and closed the door.
Were you doing anything that prevented them from putting the seatbelt on you? And I ask you this because the lawyer for the police in the Freddie Gray case said that it can be dangerous for officers trying to secure a person who's combative, and that's why sometimes the seatbelt isn't put on.
No. I mean, they just pushed me in there, and that was it.
Did they place you on the seat?
The seat's kind of sideways, so they sort of put me in sideways, but they didn't really place me, you know. I was just kind of like thrown in there, and that was it.
And describe the ride in the van once you started moving. What was it like?
It was really bumpy. They were driving very fast and aggressively. They took really wide, fast turns. I was just sliding around in there. It was all metal, you know, nothing. I couldn't hold on to anything because my hands were behind my back. I had no way to brace myself, and I wasn't strapped down. It was very bumpy and quite scary.
Steve, how difficult is it for a citizen to file a complaint against the Baltimore Police Department?
Well, Anderson, you can file the complaint, but it's, you know, the circumstances here are, I believe there's at least 3 to 5 police officers, and you've got, you know, 1 or 2 victims. So without video or without some other kind of objective evidence that contradicts what the officers are saying, these cases are tough. And that's the majority of these cases. You don't have video. And you almost need that in order to you know, increase your odds to prevail in these kinds of cases.
Christy, do you believe, I mean, you can't put yourself in the mind of a police officer who's driving the vehicle, but do you believe the way the vehicle is being driven was in some way necessary in terms of needing to get someplace fast, or do you think the driving the wide turns was intentional to have you thrown about?
I think it was completely intentional. I don't think there was any reason to have to drive like that. There's no reason to rush us anywhere. I don't think there was any reason for us to even be in that van in the first place. I think it was completely intentional the way they drove. I absolutely do.
So, Steve, what have you? You file a report, you make a complaint, and then what?
Well, Anderson, this is a federal civil rights claim, but it's a difficult process which can often take years. And it's always tough going up against these police departments. And once again, without objective evidence, it's an uphill battle.
Well, Chrissy, I appreciate you talking about your experience, and thank you, and Steve Norman as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anderson.
One last note, I do want to point out we reached out to the Baltimore Police Department with regard to the case. They told us they are not commenting at this time.